Hey everyone, have you ever made progress financially, either paying off debt or increasing your savings or making some sort of investments, only to have to backtrack a few minutes later, like the next month you have unforeseen emergencies or your credit card goes right back up or something of that nature? That's what we're going to talk about today is your financial zone of familiarity. My name is Bree Sedano. I'm a personal finance expert and the founder of From Sheep to Shark. And you are watching this video because you have signed up for my free training on decoding your money mindset. So this training is like a little prequel for that. So your financial zone of familiarity, it was constructed mostly like by your circumstances growing up. So a lot of what you've seen is normal. And this might not necessarily just be like, the family that you grew up in or the circumstances that you grew up in, but sometimes even like a long marriage will just start to change your zone of familiarity. And so when you think about how your brain works, we have the conscious part of our brain, which is like evolutionarily speaking, brand spanking new. Now that part of your brain can go into the past and retrieve information. It can imagine out to the future, and it can read a spreadsheet. That's the part of your brain that's been educated. That's the part of your brain that loves to set goals, and it loves to say, I'm going to put money in my 401k. I would love to have $10,000 in my savings account, right? The thing is our subconscious brain is actually in charge of our behaviors, like our physical actions. It's in charge of our emotions, and it's in charge of keeping you alive every single day. Now, when it comes to keeping you alive, the number one job of your subconscious brain, literally numero uno, most important job every day, it likes what's familiar because it knows that you can survive. And so we can very much be stuck in a financial comfort zone or financial familiarity zone that sucks. I'll give you a couple examples. So I had a client, and this works for both the good and the bad. So I had a client who, if he got below $10,000 in his savings account, would freak out. He would stop spending all money and redirect all money towards savings because that $10,000 was his comfort zone. So if he moved up past like $14,900, if that started to hit 15, it would stay right between the 10 and 15 mark because that was his comfort zone. So if it got below 9, he'd freak out. And if it got above 15, he would let that money go. And as long as he stayed there, he felt very comfortable. And so we have our financial zone of familiarity is made up of a few different aspects of our financial lives. It's how much money you're able to have saved in the bank. So for many of my clients, that number is way too low. Most people come see me with credit card debt, but they have the credit card debt because they actually have a really low comfort zone for savings. Their savings account may be $0, or $500 or something that's way too small for the life that they have built for themselves. So you want to think about your savings. You want to think about what's the typical amount of debt that you regularly have. That's going to be your zone of familiarity. It's going to be the amount, so I've had a lot of clients come see me. Maybe they inherited money or had some sort of windfall and they paid off all of their credit cards at once. So if you're used to $25,000 in credit card debt and you've had that amount for years, all of a sudden you pay it all off, it goes down to zero. You're at a tremendous, tremendous risk of running it right back up. Not because you're stupid or you're bad, but because your brain starts to freak out. It starts to be like, all right, well, we don't have this credit card debt anymore. What are we going to do with our cash flow? Which seems like of course, there's other wonderful things you would love to be doing, but that's not how the subconscious works. So if you've ever paid off your credit cards only to run them right back up again, that's why it's part of your familiarity zone. You want to think about your earnings to expenses ratio. Those two kind of go together. So part of that comfort zone is if I make $100 a week and I spend 97, I'm used to having a very tight cash flow. I'm used to nearly all of my money being allocated. Well, if that's where your comfort zone is, if you start making $120 a week, you might raise that spending right up to 117. So people will say, well, the more you make, the more you spend. And that's really about familiarity. And so a lot of times when it comes to making financial progress, what we have to do is you want to start to understand, where is the zone of familiarity? And I stopped using the word comfort zone because people are like, well, this isn't my comfort zone. I hate this situation. I hate it. But like the space where you normally are, you want to really get very clear about that. What's the most amount you've had in your savings account? What's the least amount? What number makes you feel like something's got to change and it actually gets changed, not just bothers you a little bit? Like if it goes below a certain number, do you actually actively save again? Or if it goes above a certain number, do you find emergencies? Do you let emergencies sneak in? Do you let other people's emergencies creep into your finances? Think about it from your credit cards. What's the balance? What's the smallest balance you've had in the last 10 years? What's the biggest balance you've had? Is there an average of in between? You want to be thinking about that to start to figure that out. Think about your expenses and your earnings. Are you normally really tight cash flow? Is that part of your comfort zone? Or do you normally have extra cash flow? Start to think about those things. Think about your investments. Are you regularly, steadily increasing, the value of your investments, or do they fluctuate? Or are you taking money out of your investments? Like what's going on there? So the first thing is you want to get super, super clear about where am I in this zone of familiarity? And you really want to look at actual circumstances, not what you think you feel comfortable with. Then you want to evaluate, well, what do you want? So like, let's just say your credit card comfort zone is $10,000 of credit card debt and you want it to be $0. Let's say your savings account, is $500, but you want it to be $15,000. You want to start to see where it is that you're at, where you want to be, and then come to the training, the Decoding Your Money Belief System, because we're going to start to really pull apart those beliefs in that longer training to start to decode, like, well, what's going on in my brain that prevents me from getting outside of the zone of familiarity, even though I know financial progress is on the other side. All right. So I will see you later this week. I love you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to teach you these things. All right. Bye, everyone.